We're joined by Joseph Ochieno, who's an African affairs commentator. He is joining us this hour from Kampala, Uganda. Joseph, thank you for joining us. It's been just less than 24 hours since the DRC and Rwanda signed that peace deal, and yet violence, as we've been reporting, has intensified in the volatile East. What's your take on what's going on there?
My take is primarily as your commentator has just reported. While you can hear, and it's perhaps the first time I've heard our President Kagame rather confidently robust in his statements, and while I have just heard President Tshisekedi referring to the traditional Congolese question of sovereignty and peace, the body languages of both leaders, particularly that of President Kagame, was not one that would grant hope. But in any case, I think the region needs and wants peace. This continent badly needs it. But what is at stake really on this occasion is who the guarantor is. And if the guarantor is America and the guarantor mechanism is based on minerals, then it may work. And it may work in as long as it's basically one which is driven as a resource-based deal rather than a question of sovereignty for Congo and a security guarantee for Rwanda. So not surprised that within moments of this, the clashes continued, because critical players in this are not necessarily referred to there. In this case, M23 and the FDLR that Rwanda accuses. But of course, those are background players. The critical players, we could argue, are the people who back those. And of course, those are the leaders who are there at the center. What is missing really are primarily the question of whether or not the majority of the Congolese have got a clear sense of belonging and ownership of the process as presented by the president, because what is at stake is not whether or not it's a pragmatic deal for Rwanda to get a guarantee for their security and Congo to have its full territorial integrity, but rather one which is backed up by an America, which America, as I repeat, is about resources for Congo. And I think the person who is sad this evening is Patrice Lumumba, who was murdered really because of Congolese resources all those years, and the people who should be answering major questions are African Union leaders, why this is not taking place in Addis Ababa, but rather in America.
Right. You've touched on the issue of precious stones there. Maybe looking below the surface here, does the deal have any safeguards to actually end violence in the DRC, or is this just a process for the U.S. To access critical mineral wealth?
I try to read through the whole process and to read through the languages. And you are absolutely right. The safeguard really is American power. And in as long as perhaps there's an American government that is present and willing to secure its interest, they will use their military power and their diplomatic power to make sure that there is a sense of stability. But what is risky, what is sad, is that it would appear that that peace is basically peace that offers conduit for resources rather than guaranteeing security for the people of Congo. And in the broader sense, the ownership of the Republic of Congo as a sovereign nation state. The question of M23 in their absence here takes us back to, as President Kagame said 30 years ago. I remember President Robert Mugabe, reminding the rest of the world that when they were persuaded then by then President Yoweri Museveni to go ahead and get rid of Mobutu, they were rather confident that they were dealing with one problem. But within a couple of years, when it became apparent that Museveni and Kagame had other interests, the SADC leaders were furious, and that fury included President Mandela. Whether or not those underlying issues have been addressed, I doubt, because they genuinely have not been addressed. And I think these are the issues that African leaders are lacking, and that's why I was drawing in the African Union on this occasion. And of course, with the exception of regional leaders, including Ugandan Vice President being there as witnesses, these are deliberate, open key players, and the United Nations does know this as a matter of fact.
Right, and finally, what key challenges is the deal likely to face, considering groups like the M23 are not even signatories? What guarantees that the M23 will actually respect the just signed agreement?
It's difficult because, as I said, in this case, if Rwanda believes that it has got a reasonable guarantee in terms of the deals and their interests, of course, without prejudice, there is an emphasis that M23 is a clear extension of theirs and a clear extension of the interests of the Republic of Uganda. And in this case, well, if the two authorities, Kampala and Kigali, have the will, the political will to check M23, they should be able to be checked. On the other, the more difficult one is actually the question of FDL. What do you do with these people if these people are refugees? What do you do with them? The answer is basically one, make sure that Congo has got complete authority and complete ability, in this case to disarm and to persuade these guys and move them. So it's really not either or, because either or becomes a question of blackmail. There is a question of sovereignty for the Congolese authorities, and there's a question of the fact that actually this is a war which is being fought in a territory in Eastern Congo, not in Rwanda, not in Uganda, and that is the Congolese Republic. But unfortunately, it's the heart of global mineral wealth, and we know that mineral wealth in Congo is almost just like the oil issues of the Gulf and the oil issues of Venezuela. These are the things, and I want to see African leaders in African capitals, whether in Nairobi, Kampala, or indeed Johannesburg, having this open conversation, and that's why they should really be at the center of this. So if this thing settles, so be it. But at the end of the day, it will be a big question for African leaders why they did not lead in this process, why they really did have to go to President Trump. But if Trump does it, may he be the peace president of the United States who offered security and long-term stability for Congo, and we shall hail him. For the moment, I think the people who badly need peace are Congolese, and the people who are most worried, in my opinion, are Africans whose resources at the moment are being dined and wined and part of a deal for their livelihoods.